They say the American flag is heavy because of the history woven into its fabric. But when you're pinned down in a nameless valley, with the air screaming and the ground shaking, that flag isn't just history. It's a promise that we all come home, or nobody does. This is the story of a Marine who kept that promise and paid for it with her last breath. The story. Staff Sergeant Sarah Miller wasn't looking for glory. On her third deployment to the Middle East, the brass on her uniform was scratched, and the American flag patch on her right shoulder was frayed and stained with the dust of a dozen firefights. To the politicians back in Washington, she was just a serial number. But to her squad, she was Mama Bear. She knew who had a kid on the way back in Texas and who was sending their paycheck to their mom in Detroit. She loved her Marines with a quiet, fierce devotion. It was a Tuesday, just a standard presence patrol through a shattered, sun-baked valley. The heat was a physical weight, pushing past 110 degrees. The squad moved in a staggered column, boots crunching on the gravel, sweat pooling under their Kevlar helmets. Then the world tore itself apart. It didn't start with a warning. It started with the catastrophic, bone-rattling roar of an IED obliterating the lead vehicle. The shock wave picked Sarah up and slammed her violently into the dirt. Before the black smoke even plumed into the sky, the valley walls erupted. Machine gun fire chewed through the concrete around them like wet paper. It was a perfectly executed ambush, an overwhelming, deadly kill zone. "Contact right! Get off the X! Move, move, move!" Sarah's voice ripped through the ringing in her ears. She was on her feet, her M4 rifle tight to her shoulder, returning precise, controlled bursts, suppressing fire. Get to the compound. They fell back into the ruins of an abandoned courtyard. But the moment the last Marine cleared the doorway, a barrage of RPGs slammed into the roof above them. The ceiling collapsed in a shower of concrete and flaming timber. The air turned instantly into thick, choking black smoke. Through the absolute chaos, the desperate, panicked voice of the Navy corpsman pierced the gunfire. "I need hands! Man down! Man down!" Sarah pushed through the smoke. Private First Class Martinez, 19-year-old kid from Ohio, on his very first deployment, was pinned in the center of the open courtyard under a massive, burning beam. Both of his legs were trapped. He was completely exposed to the high ground, and the sniper fire was relentless, chipping away the concrete just inches from his head. And then the nightmare got worse. The sparks from the RPG had ignited the dry brush and wooden debris. A wall of roaring orange fire was rapidly spreading across the courtyard, moving directly toward Martinez. "Sergeant!" the corpsman screamed, his face streaked with soot and tears. "We can't get to him. The fire is moving too fast and they have that spot dialed in." Sarah looked at Martinez. The kid's eyes were wide with the absolute paralyzing terror of death. He was reaching out, screaming for his mothers. Sarah looked at her squad. They were battered, bleeding, and putting down heavy covering fire. But they were entirely pinned. If they all rushed out, it would be a massacre. If they stayed, Martinez would burn alive. The math of war is cruel. Sometimes, to save a life, you have to trade one. Sarah didn't yell a battle cry. She didn't ask for permission. She unclipped her heavy assault pack, letting it hit the dirt. She looked at her corporal, her eyes dead calm. Call the medevac, she ordered, her voice eerily steady. Get my boys home. Before the corporal could grab her vest, Staff Sergeant Miller stepped out of cover. She didn't run. She sprinted straight into the teeth of the ambush, straight into the roaring flames. The enemy focused everything on the lone Marine rushing the open ground. The air snapped and hissed with lead. A round caught her in the side plate, spinning her off balance, cracking her ribs. She grunted, stumbled, but didn't fall. Another round tore through her left thigh. She dropped to one knee, the heat of the fire searing her face. Get up, she told herself. You don't get to quit. She dragged her bleeding body the last 10 feet, throwing herself completely over Martinez. She became a human shield, blocking the falling embers and the relentless hail of bullets with her own body. I got you, kid, she coughed, blood staining her lips. I got you, with strength that shouldn't have existed in a broken body. She grabbed the drag handle on Martinez's tactical vest. She stood up directly into the fire. Every agonizing step she took backward toward safety, the enemy poured fire into her. She took a third hit, a fourth. Her ceramic armor plates shattered, but her grip on the young private never loosened. Through the black smoke and the roaring flames, that frayed American flag patch on her shoulder caught the light. It wasn't retreating. It was carrying its wounded home. With one final, desperate heave, she threw Martinez behind the concrete wall into the waiting arms of the sobbing corpsman. As she did, the final round found its mark. Sarah fell backward. The deafening roar of the firefight suddenly seemed to fade into a dull, quiet hum. She lay there in the dust, looking up. Past the black smoke, the sky was an incredibly peaceful, deep blue. Her Marines were screaming her name. Hands were pressing down on her chest, desperately trying to stop the bleeding. The rhythmic thumping of the dust-off helicopters echoed over the mountains, signaling that help had finally arrived. She reached up with a trembling, blood-soaked hand and grabbed the corporal's collar. Her voice was barely a whisper, slipping away like sand. Did the kid make it? He's alive, Mama Bear, the corporal sobbed, tears cutting through the dirt on his face. Because of you, he's alive. A faint, peaceful smile crossed Sarah's face. The pain was gone now. The brutal heat of the valley was gone. Good, she whispered. Semper Fi. Staff Sergeant Sarah Miller closed her eyes for the last time. 2 weeks later, beneath a weeping willow tree in a quiet cemetery in Texas, a rifle volley shattered the silence. A haunting melody of taps drifted through the wind. Private Martinez sat in a wheelchair, his legs in casts, rendering a slow, trembling salute. A perfectly folded, pristine American flag was handed to a grieving mother. But for the Marines of her squad, they would always remember a different flag. A torn, dirty, blood-stained patch on the shoulder of a woman who walked into the fire so they wouldn't have to. She didn't die for glory. She died for the Marine on her left and the Marine on her right. भाई, ये रही एकदम कॉपी पेस्ट के लिए परफेक्ट स्क्रिप्ट. इसे एक ही सांस और इमोशन में रिकॉर्ड करवाना. यूएसए की ऑडियंस बिल्कुल जुट जाएगी और वीडियो पक्का वायरल जाएगी. Video created by Sub 80 Maroc.